Horror fans! Welcome to Jay's VHS. 2025 was definitely a year. I watched a whole lot of horror this year. I actually enjoyed a whole lot of horror this year. I'd say this has been one of those years with a little bit of something for everyone. I'd even go as far to say that there's been some real high points for the genre. In fact, there's probably a couple of movies that came out this year which were just high points for cinema in general. With that in mind, I thought I'd recap my top 10 horror movies that came out in 2025. This is just my personal list. Yours may be different. If your favourite horror movie of 2025 wasn't on my list, there's a chance that I haven't seen it yet. So drop it in the comments and let me know. Oh, and before we get into the list, I noticed you haven't subscribed yet. It's just one little click, but it would really help out. Thanks. Okay, so the first movie I want to talk about, or movies, shall I say, is Popeye the Slayer Man and Shiver Me Timbers. I know. 2 movies based on Popeye. See, this is part of an ongoing trend. Every time a character falls into the public domain, we get horror movies. In fact, they actually made 3 movies based on Popeye this year. I only found time to watch 2 of them. But if I was going to recommend one of them to you, it would be Popeye the Slayer Man, which I watched on Tubi. It's a surprisingly well put together horror movie. A slasher set in an abandoned spinach canning plant. I really like the prosthetics they use for his face and his big muscular arms. And anytime you see the spinach can rolling out of the darkness before he steps out of it and brutally kills someone, I actually got a real big kick out of it. I enjoyed it a lot. That's not to say that Shiver Me Timbers didn't have its moments. It was clearly made by people who love horror movies, and it shows in their work. And the ending of that one, well, it was like something out of a Gua concert. I think what I liked about the mask, the prosthetic for Popeye the Slayer Man, is that there wasn't really much give in the face. He was kind of expressionless. But that works fine for Michael Myers, so I don't have a problem with that. Sure, I went in with low expectations, but it delivered, and it entertained me, and that's what I expect from a movie. Okay, next up, Clown in a Cornfield. New clown on the scene, Friendo, joins the ranks of Pennywise and Art. Honestly, I don't think he's going to be anyone's new favourite killer clown, but it was a pretty fun movie. What I really enjoyed with Clown in a Cornfield is that it kept me guessing the whole way through the movie. I wasn't sure, are we dealing with a supernatural entity here? Is this like some sort of human slasher? I also didn't know who the killer was going to be. When we got to the big reveal towards the end of the movie, I was actually genuinely surprised. There's a lot of twists that I wasn't expecting. Now this one is based on a young adult novel, and it's one in a series. And honestly, I think I'm going to read the other books so I can find out what happens next. I enjoyed it. I'm locked in. I do have a bit of a soft spot for any time a movie has a title that tells me exactly what to expect from the movie. Like Sharktopus or Alien vs. Predator. This one definitely had a clown in a cornfield. No mis-selling claims here. Yeah, in at number 8 we've got The Good Boy. This is a horror movie that shows you everything from the point of view of the dog. All of the shots are really low down and you don't really know what's going on with the humans because he's a dog and he doesn't understand. But you do get this constant sense of dread, like the dog can sense something that we can't. This was a nice little indie movie. And Indy happens to be the name of the dog. Honestly, the dog is a really good actor, like probably one of the best actors I've seen in all of the movies I watched this year. Not quite the top, but he's probably in the top 3. He is, however, the director's dog, so I don't know if that makes him a Nepo baby. Maybe a Nepo puppy. I like a movie that tries something different and takes a risk. And this one is an unusual concept, but it really, really works. What I liked best was the way it was shot, the use of negative spaces. You're never quite sure if you saw something or whether you didn't. It's more about the constant dread and unease than anything terrifying. Good boy, good film. At number 7, we've got The Monkey. This one's a Stephen King adaptation from the director who made Longlegs, so you expect it to be pretty good. The toy monkey in this is actually really, really creepy. Like how something that's, I wouldn't say inanimate, but not alive, can be so creepy. Just really well done. What really shocked me with this one is that it's only a 15. This movie was so gory. It's hard to pin down what the most inventive kill was. Maybe the swimming pool electrocution, the wasp's nest, the bowling ball. Just so many standout moments throughout the movie. I want to give props to Theo James in this as well. He had dual roles. One of the things that is tricky with a movie like this, and another movie that comes later on the list, is how signposted the deaths are. You know when the monkey starts drumming that somebody is going to die. And yet somehow when they die, it still turns out to be absolutely shocking. It's exactly what I want from a movie. So good. While the plot of The Monkey is kind of a dumb idea on paper, I've never let that stop me enjoying a horror movie. And this one, not as dumb as it sounds. Okay, number 6, we've got the debut feature from Tina Romero, Queens of the Dead. This is a movie about drag queens. Zombie drag queens. It's absolutely hilarious. This was so much more fun than I was expecting. The thing that I enjoyed the most in this movie was probably the soundtrack. Somehow they had an original score that was reminiscent of her father's work, but mixed with like thumping club music, which was such a juxtaposition, but really cool. One of my favourite scenes in the movie was when they put the news on. It suggests that this movie was set in a universe where Night of the Living Dead exists as a movie, kind of like Return of the Living Dead. And while the whole cast in this movie were great, I do have to shout out the cameo. Tom Savini plays the president. His scene is hilarious. It's brilliant. You've got to watch it just for that. It's honestly just a really well-balanced zombie movie. It doesn't take itself too seriously. What I liked about the movie was how well it balances itself. It's got a very light-hearted, fun tone, but still manages to draw you into these characters and make you care about them. They're still very real characters, despite being in a very unreal situation. It's nuanced and balanced. Okay, we're into the top half of the list now. Number 5 is Dangerous Animals. Jai Courtney plays a tour boat captain who loves what he does. And what he does is kidnap women and feed them to sharks. Jai's performance in this movie really carries the whole thing so well. He's charismatic and you don't want to like him, but you cannot take your eyes off him. He is phenomenal, an absolute joy to watch. And honestly, who doesn't like a good shark movie? Sharks are great. Sharks are badass. Speaking of badass is the final girl in this movie, Zephyr. She's like a lives in a van surfer drifter type. The lengths she goes to survive this movie are pretty impressive. The only thing I did think was that maybe her love connection with the male interest in this movie was a little bit pushed. They basically have one conversation early in the film about how they both like the same not particularly obscure band, and that's it, bonded for life. Normally that would bug me, but there's a point in the movie where he goes to the police and the policeman points out that this is a woman he's just met. Honestly, I can't recommend this movie enough. It's kind of like Wolf Creek and Jaws had a baby. Shark doo 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 doo, baby shark doo 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 doo. Okay, number 4, Final Destination, Bloodlines. I know, we've already had The Final Destination, but it's kind of fitting that a movie franchise about cheating death managed to cheat death. Honestly, the Final Destination franchise isn't one that I particularly love, but I will say this one is probably a high point. The kills in this movie were absolutely insane. There's a whole sequence at the beginning involving like a restaurant similar to the Sky Needle in Seattle. Honestly, you just have to watch it for yourself. Have you ever seen those experiments where the bowling ball rolls along the shelf and it knocks over the books that lands on the coin that rolls across the desk and flips the golf ball across the room and cracks the egg and sets off the model train set? One of those perpetual disasters in this case. Although in this instance, it ends with a really annoying kid getting what's coming to them. If you've seen the movie, you know the kid I'm talking about, and when that piano lands on him, chef's kiss. Beyond that initial opening scene, the rest of the movie is actually pretty fun as well. It's got a cool storyline about how everyone that survived this one big disaster then goes on to live a life and have children. So death comes back methodically, family by family, and wipes out the whole bloodline. See what they did there? Bloodlines. Honestly, it was just a really fun movie, like a popcorn roller coaster. I recommend you check it out. At number 3, we've got another franchise that came back 28 years later. This time we got Danny Boyle back in the director's seat. It was great to go back and revisit the world that he'd created, and now we've got all these new types of infected, which were really interesting, if a little naked. Tonally, it was a really sincere coming-of-age type of movie with infected. I thought it explored some really interesting themes in terms of the loss of innocence and the inevitability of death. Honestly, I can't talk about this movie without talking about Samson, the alpha infected, or Thundergun as I call him. The guy hangs dong, but this guy is absolutely brutal. Like, Samson kills people in ways that previously I'd only seen in Mortal Kombat fatalities. Absolutely wild, but not as wild as the way that the movie ends. You get to the end of the movie and the whole thing shifts tone dramatically out of nowhere. The Teletubbies theme is playing, people in bright coloured outfits are backflipping and using weapons like they're Power Rangers, but it's a bloodbath. Honestly, I can't wait for the Bone Temple to find out what happens next. Okay, down to the last two, and you can probably guess what these are going to be. But my number 2 is Weapons. I really enjoyed the way that the story was retelling itself from multiple points of view. Like, every time you revisit a scene that you think you've already seen before, you view it again with a new piece of information or a new context or viewpoint that just changes your understanding of what's just happened. It starts off with a really intriguing mystery. Like, you don't know where this whole entire classroom of children have just disappeared to. From that opening mystery, you're just left guessing the whole way through the movie until it's ready to play its hand and show you what's actually going on. And I was clueless. I could have never guessed how this big reveal was going to play out. And when the final villain is fully revealed, wow, creepy. Like, she's pretty creepy for an adult, and the things that she does is horrible. But from the child's perspective, that's terrifying. The scene where the parents just pick up the forks at the dinner table and start stabbing themselves in the face, I felt so sorry for that kid. But the one thing about this movie that will stick with me, I think, is the stampede at the end. It reminded me of the start of that Jackass movie, where they did the running of the bulls through a suburban setting, except this time with children. I'd almost go as far to say Weapons was not just a great horror movie, but a great movie, but not the best movie of the year. Okay, number 1, Sinners. I don't think anyone was expecting anything different here, right? Like, this movie was a masterpiece. And Michael B. Jordan in the lead, how good was he? Are we sure there's only one of him? Because I feel like there was 2 of them in certain scenes. My brain can't even comprehend the scene where they stand next to each other, leaning against the car, and between them, one rolls the cigarette, passes it to the other one, who lights it and has a couple of drags and passes it back to him, and it feels like it's all one continuous shot. And it's not just the acting that's great, the cinematography is brilliant, the sets are great, but the thing that I think that really sets it apart is the music. The music is more than just a framing device or something that accentuates the narrative in this. And while they're in a bar with a live band playing, the music itself almost feels like a character in the movie. I don't think it would be fair to talk about the movie Sinners without making some comparisons to From Dusk Till Dawn. While on paper they seem like they're very similar plots, they are still very different movies. We've got to give a shout out to Jack O'Connell as well, who's great in this. In fact, Jack managed to get 2 spots in the top 3, but I expect he'll have an even better year next year in the Bone Temple. Well, we made it to the end. Let me know, were there any that you loved that didn't even make my top 10? Drop their names in their comments, I want to know what they are. Drop a little like on the video if Sinners was your number 1 horror movie of the year as well. If you want more horror related content, just hit the subscribe button. But until next time, I'm Jay, this is Jay's VHS. Be kind, rewind.